Hi all. We're going to do part 3, security guard training. So I'm no expert on this topic, but from what I've read, you don't need any training to be a security guard. Each state might be different, but in my state, I think the way the regulations read is the owner of the security guard company, he needs to have the training and the requirements and all that stuff. But the people he hires, they don't need to have any specific training. Now, that's just for like a general night watchman type of security guard. So check in your state. Just call your local police department or your local sheriff's department. See if they know anything about it. I actually called my state capital, and I talked to the woman in the department that handles the security guard regulations and certifications and stuff like that. And I asked her about this, and I kept her on the phone like 5 minutes or so, and she just, I was asking her about the training and stuff like that, if there was required training, and she just acted like she had no idea what I was talking about. So, take that one with a grain of salt. So, I think that's the way it is. Now, that's not what I recommend, though. That's, to go from sweeping the floor in a department store to being a security guard, that's a big jump. you know Sure, you can get a guard job and just start walking the floor, but to handle incidents and know how to prevent incidents before they actually happen, that's a whole nother ballgame. So, of course, we all start somewhere. Get a job as a guard and then go get your training. To follow my list here, most states have a guard card. It basically just looks like a driver's license. Now, let's see, when I did this back in the 80s, the early 80s, I went for the 120 security guard training. It was 120 hours private police training. Back then, the security guards were 120 hours. I think the police were 360 hours. And I think the police have doubled their hours now. So that's what I've been looking for now, 120 private security guard training. And I couldn't find nothing on it. I've scoured the web for hours. It's like, how could I not find anything? Even old stuff that talked about the history. Couldn't even find nothing. So, as far as I understand, there's a guard card. Everything I've read these days, everyone says go get your guard card. You would think you'd have to have some type of training for your guard card. So what's a guard card? Looks like a driver's license. If you just go out to a search engine like Google, type in guard card, hit search, and then you get these guys up here at the top. Click on images here. That means pictures. And these are examples of guard cards. It just looks like a driver's license that you carry in your wallet. So here, just to pick this state, it says to become an unarmed security guard in Nevada, one must first get a registration card from Nevada's Private Investigator Licensing Board. While no training is required prior to applying, there is a written exam to complete To become an unarmed security guard in Nevada, applicants must a completed application, a signed and dated civil applicant waiver, a passport size photo. You can go to like Walgreens and get a photo taken, or you can even take them at home, Copies of forms of identification, U.S. passport or copy of both your driver's license and social security card, fingerprints via electronic submission form. When I got my CCW, they took my fingerprints, and there's no ink now. It's just like a piece of glass. It kind of looks like a scanner, a scanner on a computer. You just put your fingers down there and they scan your fingers. So that's what they mean here by electronic submission form. Security guard exam with score of 100%. Unarmed security guard applicants can expect to take up to 10 days to receive license approval. Fees range from $85 to $129. Depending on how you submit your fingerprints and whether you wish to expedite the process. So, that's one state. So each state is going to be different. Check in your state. Talk with the companies that you apply to, the security guard companies. They might be able to hire you and then require you to do this application within like a certain amount of time. Because if you're unemployed, you can't afford to pay this. There's also a firearms qualification permit. See, when you take your security guard training, they train you as a guard, and then the firearms training is separate. And when I was a kid, I didn't hear them call it anything, but I've seen it on web pages now. They call it a white card. So there's a guard card and a white card. So each state in the USA will probably have different requirements for your firearms training, and I'm sure each country will be different. Okay, so I researched this security guard training thing quite a bit, and I'm really surprised there's not more concrete information. There's schools that have security guard courses, but of course they don't come out and say, yes, it's required for the state. They want you to take the course whether or not it's actually required. So that being said, what I recommend is you do take all the training that you can get. So you know what you're doing, and you'll get paid more because you know more about the business. That's only common sense. For instance, you wouldn't want to be a truck driver if you don't have no training, right? You might know how to drive a truck, rode with your buddy or something, but you would still want to go for more training to make sure you're not missing something. So even with all these variables up here, security guard, armed security guard, watchman, right? All different types. So even with all these different variables, the types of guard training and guard cards and white cards and all that stuff, the job is still going to remain the same. Okay, no matter what, it's going to be the same. You're going to protect people and property. Okay, you're going to protect people and property. So to start your training, you may have to pay for your own training. call up a few local community colleges, see if they have a security guard course. There may not be a guarantee for a job, but if you already have the training, you're more apt to get that job. If they get 50 applications, you're the only one who has taken a course, you're more apt to get the job. 20-hour handgun training. There was a few courses that I looked at community colleges. That's what the course was. There's a classroom part of the course, and then they take you to the gun range. Most likely most of this is classroom, and then they take you to the gun range. So each course will be different. Some job ads I've seen require CCW, CCH. So the CCW is a carry concealed weapon. And then there's also a CCH, that's a carry concealed handgun. So I looked around on the web, and there's different categories. CCW, concealed carry weapon. CCH, concealed carry handgun. CCP, concealed carry permit. CHP, concealed handgun permit. CWP, concealed weapon permit. So I think the main distinction here is CCW would be everything. Handguns, shotguns, any type of weapon within reason, right? Whereas CCH would just be like a handgun, something you carry on your hip or in your pocket. Some job ads said they require that, but you may want to get that before you even go for your security guard training. If you get an armed security guard job, it's real touchy how you carry your gun back and forth to work. So that's why if you have a CCH, then you don't have to worry about it. Okay, so we'll go into more detail with this stuff later on. I just want to skim through these real quick, and then we'll come back and do some more videos and pick up on the details. So this is what I was talking about earlier. In the 1980s, when I was a guard, it used to be 120 hours private police training, and the police was 360 hours. So what I was saying up here, if you go for your CCW first, they'll put you through a background check, and then you're good to go. You don't have to go through all the security guard training, and then a company checks you, and something in your background is going to block you from getting the job. So getting your CCW or your CCH really isn't that hard. When I took it, it was like $125, and it was a weekend course, Saturday and Sunday. First day was like 12 hours in the classroom or something like that, and then Sunday was the range. I think some courses do spread it out. You can go once a week, So if you know a little bit about guns, you can easily do it. The book that they use is this guy here. It's the NRA book. You can buy a used one on Amazon for like $2. There's updated versions. That's the older one that they used when I took the course. When I took the course, they gave you this book for free. Has all types of good publications. This is another good one. It's like for home self-defense. That would be the basics of how to handle incidents. it may help as a security guard. And then, when you take a security guard course, they'll also do first aid course. This is the book that I used. And, can you imagine going through that, in just like a couple of days? So that's why I say if you get into this now and start reading through this, read like a couple pages a week, just the basics of first aid and CPR. First aid doesn't include CPR. That would be like an add-on to your first aid. So you can like get your phone book or call information, do a search on the web, and look for American Red Cross first aid course. And I'm sure they have them in your area. I think they used to be like $60 for like a 1 or 2 day course. I used to have a buddy that taught it, and it was only $60, but that was like back in the 80s, 90s. Some places that you work will offer the first aid or CPR course for free. So if you get a flyer at your job now that says we're offering a CPR course, take it. If you can get it for free. I think you have to take it every year or every other year. You have to keep up on that. They give you a certificate and you're registered that you took the CPR course. Okay, then something else that you can do is like just go down to your sheriff's department and get this book. I'm sure each state will be different, but my state gives out this book. It's just a small book that tells you about carrying a concealed weapon. Stuff like this would be a good start if that's the business that you're getting into. Even if you don't want to be an armed security guard, you should still understand guns because you're wearing a uniform and a badge. What if you're in an incident where the robber or the burglar has a gun and all of a sudden you're fighting with him and you get the gun? It's like, now what do you do, right? So that's why even if it's not an armed security guard job, you should still understand the stuff. And not only handguns, but rifles and shotguns. And so you know what to do with a shotgun. You know what to do with a rifle. Of course, here, I'm taking average security guard job and I'm trying to bring it up a level. These are things that I bumped into. I was a guard 8 years. Had no idea what to do with a rifle. Had no idea what to do with the shotgun. Didn't know how to load one. Didn't know how to shoot it. If you grew up around these things, it's probably no big deal. But for the average person, the first time you fire a shotgun, it makes a pretty big noise. It's a pretty big shock. Shakes the whole building. Okay, so I just list a few areas of study that you might want to be aware of. So let's just skim through these. Areas that you should study as a security guard. Basic building security, locking doors, locking windows, fire alarms, fire extinguishers. Where are the fire escapes? All kind of things like that. How to de-escalate a fight. If people start a fight, they call you to break it up. Well, what do? You just stand there in the back and hope you don't get hit, or what? You got to step in between two people fighting and break it up. Some security guard companies may say, hey, all you're there for is to call 911. Well, then, of course, you don't get involved. Each company, each business you work at will be different. But still, if you can de-escalate a fight with your words, that's better. To give you an example, I was a guard at a college. It was an elite college, Catholic college. And, young guys, they're always fighting, you know. One night, late at night, you know, 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, we got called to go back. A bunch of guys were fighting at the dorm, right? Me and my boss run back there, right? Now, you know, as a side story, you know, these are the types of things you're going to bump into. The other guys I worked with had told me that my boss would do this type of thing. And as we got to the building, we're going up to the front door. The guy goes, "Hey, I'm going to go around the back so they can't run out," right? And I'm like, I got to go in by myself, right? And I was fairly new there. I was only there a few months. So that's what they had warned me about, that he was basically chicken. He's sneaking around the back, you know. So I had been a guard for a long time, you know. I was new there, but I had been a guard for a long time. So I just walked into the dorm. It was a dorm room, young kids. I wasn't much older than them, you know, a couple years older. And it was basement floor, a bunch of kids. There had to be there was a big pile all in the hallway. I can still see it in my eyes. At least 10 kids down on the floor rolling around fighting. It's like, how do you handle that type of thing, right? So I just stood there and yelled at them, "If you don't break it up right now, I'm calling your parents." And they they all scattered. It was over in a matter of seconds. So that's what I'm talking about here. How do you de-escalate a fight? You know, I broke up another fight one time at a country bar. I used to only fill in there when other people called off, but it was the type of country bar where people would come from 50 miles around just to fight, right? Nice place, it was nice, you know, but guys just went there to fight. That's what they wanted to do on the weekend. So there was multiple fights every night. One time there was a big fight down on the floor. You know, and I just remember we had 4 or 5 guards there. We're grabbing people, just trying to peel them off, you know. And later on, I bumped into one of the guys in the restroom, and he looked at me. He said, "If I knew you were only a security guard, I wouldn't have stopped fighting. I thought you were sheriff," because we had the big fancy hats, you know. So just by the appearance, you know, me being there, they stopped fighting. So. A worst fight I ever saw was actually a woman fighting with her boyfriend, and a couple of deputy sheriffs came down and got them, and there was 2 deputies holding the woman like this. One had her around her chest, one had her around her legs. They were carrying her, and she still wasn't giving up. It was bad, you know. So she was mad, right? So. Okay, so that just gives you an example of the type of thing that you might bump into. First aid. I just saw something on the news just a little while ago. They said tourniquets save lives. Right when I was putting this together, I saw on the news that it takes 4 minutes for EMTs to arrive. You know, your area may be longer, you know. I just watched a video a couple days ago. It was a snowplow video, and the guy said he dropped the plow close to an ATM, set off the alarm. It took the police 10 minutes to get there. So my point is, if there's something going on, it might take a while for the police or the EMTs to get there. So you may have to handle it, right? So, you know, I think now, though, they're recommending not to use a tourniquet because it cuts off the blood and then the person might lose the limb. But it's been a while since I've taken the first aid course. So, but if you're badly bleeding, you know, you got to do something. I saw a couple bad ones. One I saw, young kid in a dorm, you know, just fooling around. He punched the window. As he brought his arm back out, it sliced his arm. And they called us, and I ran back there, and he's sitting there like this, and his tendon sticking out his arm. It looked like a big white straw. So we just grabbed some towels and held it on there, and we were only a block away from the EMTs, so they were there right away. So, okay, then, there's parking laws. You have to know where people can park in your area. Towing vehicles from disabled parking spots. One place I worked is a college. I was towing cars practically weekly or daily. People were always parking in the disabled spots. Of course, I didn't like to do that type of thing, but I had to. That was part of the job. People that worked in the office would call us and say, "Hey, someone just parked in the disabled spot. Get them out of there." What makes that tough is once you call the towing company, we were not allowed to let the people take their car. So even if they showed up getting ready to move their car to leave, I had to make them stay. So that was tough. These days, I don't know if I actually deal with that. If people turn around and shoot you these days for a quarter. When I was a guard, people weren't crazy yet. Crack and AIDS hadn't come out yet. But these days, people are just nuts. So, you might want to learn a little bit about locks. We're always locking doors. Lots of locks don't work right, so you may have to oil them up or tighten them up with a screwdriver, or learn how to fix them up just a little bit so it locks. It makes your job easier. Something that you'll bump into a lot is people like to prop doors open to get fresh air in, or they're only leaving for a minute and the door will lock behind them, so they'll prop it open so they can run down to the fast food place and come back, and that type of thing. One factory I was a guard at, the union guys liked to prop all the fire doors open, the exterior doors, to get the air in during the summer because it was real hot, and they weren't allowed to do that. These are fire doors. You have to keep them closed. So, do you look the other way or don't you? It's 80 or 90 degrees outside and it's hot in there and they just want to get some air. If you're working somewhere where there's a pool, make sure you know how to swim. You may want to take a lifeguard course. Even though we weren't required to be a lifeguard, since there was a pool, they should require it. It's only common sense. So you have to know how to deal with illegal entry. These days, everything is an open environment. They take down fences and leave doors open. What I used to do is just tell the police. I'd call the police and say, "Get them off the property. Private property. Get them off the property. I don't care what you do." Now, there's a lot of protest. If you're working at a college or some type of business, there's protest all over the place now. Some of these things can get very violent. I worked a few strikes that were kind of scary. So, how do you deal with that type of thing? You might want to purchase your own helmet, your own face guard, in case you're getting rocks thrown at you. Or just buy one off eBay and keep it in your trunk. If there happens to be a protest that pops up, at least you got it with you. And that goes for a bulletproof vest too. They're pretty expensive, but if you can't afford a new one, you can buy a used one on eBay. And I've seen used ones go pretty cheap. You can buy just the pads themselves for like $60. But for the whole vest, you can get them for $100 or $2. not that you want to wear it every day, but if something violent pops up in your area, it might be nice to have it. I think I watched a video just a little while ago, and they tested old vest against the new vest. The old vests were still in pretty good shape. They didn't lose their protection over time. See, with the bulletproof vest, there's like an expiration period. They're only good for a couple years, but they tested them and they found them to be pretty good. So, fire prevention. You have to know a lot about fire prevention. One factory I worked at, before I started there, the warehouse in the back had burned down. It was a pretty big warehouse. It was probably, a football field or more. It was pretty big. And what the old timers had told me was they went back there to put the warehouse fire out, pulled the hoses out. There's big fire hoses on the wall every 50 feet or so. They pulled the hoses out, and when they turned the water on, the hoses just blew up because they were old and rotten. Grabbed the fire extinguishers, went to squirt them, and nothing came out because no one was checking the fire extinguishers. So that wasn't really that long ago. That was probably 60s or 70s. So you would think by then they'd have it together, right? Fire prevention is actually a big deal. There's college courses on fire prevention. In case you're kind of young, go watch the movie called Towering Inferno. It's just a good example of what happens in a skyscraper. In case you get a job in a skyscraper, I think they say in that movie ladders can only go up 7 floors. You might want to know a little bit about child abduction. It sounds like when am I gonna bump into that, right? When I was catching shoplifters, right before I started at this store, they had told me a story that a guy had grabbed a young girl. She was walking around the store with her mother. The guy grabbed her, drug her into the bathroom, drugged her, shaved her hair off, and then he was going to try and sneak her out the store as his kid, right? But what the store did, as soon as the mother reported it, they put the mall gates down, they locked all the doors so no one could get out. So shoplifting, loss prevention, there's more to it than just walking around the store catching kids stealing candy. These days there's active shooters. How do you spot a shooter? Some common things are stiff leg. That shows he's got a rifle or a shotgun stuck down his pants or under his long coat. Long coats in the summer. Go on YouTube and look for a Columbine reenactment. It's pretty realistic. I heard a company took all the recordings and tried to put together a video on what it was like inside the cafeteria during the shootings. It's pretty scary. If it's still up, I'll put a link down below. How to detect bombings and explosives. These days there's always bomb threats and pipe bombs and backpack bombs and pressure cookers and bomb vests, So, that's just the day and age that we live in. Now, you might say, I live out in the middle of nowhere, a small town, I may not bump into that. Well, yeah, but there was one out west, small business, just a little while ago. Fella working there was mad, and he came in there with a knife and chopped the woman's head off right in the office, just sliced her neck. And I don't know if it was the owner of the company or something. He was one of the executives there. Just happened to be an off-duty sheriff deputy. Had his gun. He walked in and shot the guy. That one woman still got her head cut off. Just sliced her neck. So people are nuts these days. And there again, when I was a guard, these things didn't happen. People weren't nuts back then. You would hear about these things once in a blue moon, but now they're like every day or every week. So, here at the bottom, diesel fuel and fertilizer, for bombs. There's a good video on YouTube that is an example of the police spotting a truck that has fertilizer in it, and by looking at a few things they can tell that they're not lawn workers. They're gonna make a bomb with the stuff. That one big building that got blown up out west, that was with lawn fertilizer. These days, lots of these terrorists are using vehicles as attack weapons. They rent a big truck and ram a crowd or ram someplace and kill a bunch of people. Cars, trucks, planes, tanker trucks. If you get a lot of tanker trucks, if you don't get a lot of tanker trucks and all of a sudden one's driving up into your business, it's not supposed to be there. Why is it there? If you work at a chemical chlorine factory, chlorine is deadly, right? If a chemical factory is blown up, that could do a lot of damage in your town. I didn't work there, but I worked close to a factory that used chlorine. And a couple of times a year, something would go wrong, that they'd have a leak, and there'd be big alarms going off. And our whole town would be aware that, hey, there's a problem with the chlorine. The chlorine is deadly. So there's actually a certification that you can get, certified as an anti-terrorist specialist. So, we can go on and on here. So you can see there's more to it than just being a night watchman. You go sit there in an empty building, empty guard shack, and listen to the radio during the night, right? Well, you never know what you're going to bump into. So you can be studying these things, especially if you have access to a computer there during the night. You can get on the web and research these things, and it will help you in your career. And I'm sure there's a lot more. These are just a few things that I could think of as I was putting this thing together. Something I did bump into was New York City has an enhanced security guard training. They require 40 hours, including 3 hours for terrorism. So, my feeling, 3 hours for terrorism just isn't enough. I guess it's better than nothing, right? So, here I put due to the severity of the incidents. 3 hours is not enough. Maybe 3 hours once a month, right? You go to a 3-hour course once a month, take off half a day of work and get paid for it and go to the training. So, just as an example, would you be able to spot a pressure cooker bomb? If it's wrapped up in a backpack or something, how do you spot that type of thing, right? Would you be able to spot a person with a bomb vest? If it's the middle of summer and they're walking around in a winter coat, well, maybe. 90% of the year it's cold, right? So we're all walking around in winter coats. Okay, so I think that gives you an idea of where I'm coming from here. To get started, from what I can tell, you don't need any special training to be a security guard. But I think it would be a good idea to at least get some training. Take a course at your local community college. go down to the library, pick up a few books. What you can do at the library is go online, log in. I'll show you. Okay, so like here's the web page for my local library. So I can log into my account. So this is just my account name. On the back of your library card there's a long number. You can just type that in here, and then the first time you use it you might have to talk to the librarians and get your password set up, and then you can log into your account. And then up here you can see here it says my account. So here's all the books that I've taken out, that I have out now. And if I want to renew them, I can just like click here and then click the renew button here. But what I wanted to show you was I can search for things here. So like if I wanted to pick an area here, let's say this here. Let's see if there's anything on this. Okay, nothing on that. Let's try this. Nothing on that. So there's a few things here. Not what I was hoping for. Let's see if we can find something here. Let's just go for security guard training. Okay, so here's private police training manual. So I can click on that. Let's see. What else is here? This looks like the one that this looks like the course that I took. It was at Case Western in Cleveland. So we can click here. It says there's 2 available. And what I can do is just click here to place a hold, and I can go place hold, and I'm going to pick it up here. This is my local library here. Okay, so then if I go back to my account here, this area here, it says holds. I have this book on hold. It's not just my local library, but it's the library area. It's library all over the northern part of Ohio. So I think it's like 10, 20 different libraries. So this might come from Cleveland, it might come from halfway to Columbus. You know, I have no idea. I guess I could check to see where it's coming from, but it doesn't really matter because it's going to come to my local library, and then they'll either call me when it shows up, or what I did was I went down to the library and told them just send me an email when it comes. Then I'm not getting 1,000 phone calls every time a book comes in. So that's in the holds. And then there's also this digital holds. So let's see if we can find one there. See, there's books that you can read online. So it should say electronic. So you can see book. Okay, so I did a search for first aid. If I scroll down here, you can see this. If I scroll down, you can see this one's a book. This one's a DVD. Book. See, this one, format, electronic format is this Hoopla. And there's multiple formats. There's like 4 or 5 of them. And if you have that set up, you can click this download button. See, I don't have the Hoopla set up, so I'm getting this error. But you can just call your library and they can walk you through the steps on how to set that up. See, here's one. Format MP3 overdrive listen. So you can actually listen to this online. Oh, and here's one. Adobe EPUB, HTML, and Kindle. So I think I have the Adobe EPUB set up. So I'll click download, and I'll go with the Adobe one. Check out. They want me to update my my Adobe stuff. Okay, so if I go to my checkouts, I have my books here, library checkouts. Here I have my digital checkouts. Here's the first aid manual. I can click download here. It should just open it. Okay, so here's the manual, and you can read it online for free. Okay. Once you get it set up, once you get the EPUB stuff set up, it's real easy, but it is kind of a pain to get it set up the first time. Something else that you can do is like something that I do a lot. Like, let's say we'll go with this one here. Then I like using Yahoo, but it's the same thing on Google. The exact phrase, and then the format down here, I'll switch that to PDF and click search. Okay, nothing for that. So it gave me 2 PDFs here. Sometimes it takes a while to find something good, and you have to be careful not to download something with a virus. But here, let's try this one here. So here's State of Minnesota Private Detective. Okay, so not much on that topic, huh? Let's try again here. Let's try Google. In case you haven't heard of Glassdoor, that's just another job site like Indeed. So this is more of a computer job here. Network operations. Here's anti-terrorist. So you can see here they name all these certified anti-terrorist specialists, CAS, and a few other things, but down here, must be skilled in Microsoft Office, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Not that you need to be a genius at the stuff, but you have to know the basics of how to use these things. That's why I brought it up in one of the earlier videos. Let's say here, we'll just go PDF. So like here, anti-terrorism course. So here's a course on that type of thing. But what I'm looking for is like a full-size book. So this just looks like a flyer. So here you see CATS training manual. Okay, so I think we'll call her a day there. And once we finish up with these, we'll come back and pick up on some of the topics and go into a little bit more detail. Okay, see ya.